Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truths Podcast. And what a week! I mean, there was a whole lot of football, and I have a whole lot to say, and I'm sure my man BK does as well. So, yeah, I can't wait to talk to the congregation this week, BK. Um, we'll get into why in just a second. I'm your Jose, the fantasy football fiend, and I have my guy, your guy, BK Wins. Holla at the people, my guy.
Hey y'all.
BK. Customarily we start the show off talking about what we saw this week that kind of just stayed on our mind, and we wanted to voice our opinion on said subject to the congregation and each other. And for me this week, man, look, the refs might have cost Sean McDermott his job, might have cost the Bills their head coach, might have cost them the opportunity to move on further in the playoffs. Definitely cost Brandon Cooks a catch. If all things are going to be equal and we're going to call a thing across the board, and there were just that may have legitimately been one of the worst officiated games I've seen this postseason, and I've seen several, but I just side by side, like this is the worst postseason to have that kind of catch not be a catch, because there was another catch that was a catch that looked exactly the same on another team. So yeah, I really feel like this cost Josh Allen and Sean McDermott quite a bit. I kind of feel like had they won this game, he would have probably kept his job. That's neither here nor there at this point, but I kind of feel like if they had at least minimally gotten to the AFC Championship game, he would have kept his job, and they would have been probably more likely to pull something off next round, have an opportunity to go. But it was just glaring to me the amount of mistakes that the so-called best officiating crews in the game throughout the year, because that's how they kind of get chosen to be in the playoffs themselves. I just 1 + 1 was equaling 11 instead of 2, and it made no sense. Maybe you saw it differently.
Yeah, so I can definitely understand where you're coming from for sure. Um, I'm actually excited because you and I usually see things the same. So I'm actually excited that we do not agree on this. And I'm going to take off the fact that, and I know it's difficult for y'all, but I hope I've earned this reputation enough over time that, make no mistake, I'm very happy. And any help that anyone gave them, whether it be Josh Allen or McDermott or anyone, I will gladly take the assist. But that said, I think there were missed opportunities on both sides with the officiating. It was bad on both sides. And here's what I'll break down why. There was a sequence at the end of regulation where Cooks had a corner route in the end zone where Riley Moss looked like he grabbed him. I wasn't sure in real time if it was pass interference or defensive
Definitely
holding
was.
or holding, but either case, it was a penalty that wasn't called. But later in that drive, on 3rd and 10, when the announcers pointed out that Josh Allen missed a wide open Kincaid inside the 10 and he would have scored, they conveniently missed the fact that the Broncos were held, which is the whole reason why, and it was a blatant hold that they didn't call and they let it go. There was also a non-call holding in the end zone where the Broncos were held in the end zone, which would have been a game-ending safety, and they chose to let that go too. So I say that to say that, the first pass interference penalty that the Broncos got, I thought was a ticky-tack call that should have been a play on. I thought that was a lot of hand fighting and much ado about nothing. The second one, that was a mugging. Like, that was pass interference. But the one thing, I was talking to somebody that we work with that's a diehard Bills fan, and the one thing that he said that people lost sight of on the first pass interference call, say that you throw that out and say that wasn't a flag or shouldn't have been a flag, or they don't even call it, there was still roughing the passer. So whether you get 17 yards for the pass interference or 15 for the personal foul doesn't really matter. The 2 yards doesn't really matter at that point. So, either way, as far as the biggest play, which was the catch/interception, the NFL is in a tough spot here, and I think that we're actually going to see a rule change coming up. And here's why. If you follow the letter of the law, then that was an interception because he didn't complete, per the NFL rules, he didn't complete the 3 steps. Now, I'm not saying I agree with said rule or that it shouldn't have been a catch. I'm not arguing that. Based on the rule says they have to catch the ball. It has to be in bounds, and they have to, even if they're on the ground, it's not down by contact. They have to maintain possession through the ground, which he did not. McMillan already had his arms in there at the time he was going to the ground, and he took it away from him. He didn't complete the process. So by rule, so here's the thing where it's tough. If you're asking me if that's a catch or a pick, to me, I think it's more of a catch than an interception. But by the rule, it is an interception. And so they did get that right. But at the end of the day, here's the thing. Not you, Zay, but Buffalo fans, stop whining and bitching about the refs. You realize that you turned the ball over 5 times on the road. 3 fumbles and the 2 picks. Josh Allen tried to do way too much. He made too many mistakes. That turnover at the end of the first half where they had 16 seconds and no timeouts and had to go 30 yards to even think about a field goal. Take a damn knee. Why do that? You had nothing to gain from that. You had no chance to score, and nothing good can come from that. I just think teams are 1-85 since now 1-86. Since 1977, when a road team is -3 or worse on the road in the postseason. There was 77 Rares with Ken Stabler and Dave Casper. They beat the Colts. That's the one time. If Buffalo almost won this game and could have won this game, and you could even argue should have won this game, but at the end of the day, if you don't turn the ball over 13,000 times, you do win the game. That's not good football.
Be that as it may, BK, regardless of whether were mistakes made, absolutely. But my thing is, whether it's on both sides, one side, no side, like you can't have blatant calls that Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles could see, and then on the other side say, but you shouldn't have just made your mistakes. Like with my mistakes, we would have won the game had the calls that should have been called a certain way been called that way. Like it just amazes me how we'll say on one hand, the players, the coaches, whoever's involved in the actual gameplay will just suck it up and keep it pushing. But while at the same time, we don't hold the refs accountable, they have one job. One job. That's it. Call what you see. If I can see it, you should be able to see it. If you couldn't see it, somebody else should have seen it. What's the whole purpose of the eye in the sky and the refs in New York or whatever the hell, wherever they're supposed to be? What's the purpose of even having you if I can clearly see what the call is, and even with all the replays, you don't get it right? That boggles my mind. That's my issue. It's not that I don't get that, hey, mistakes were made all around. It's that once mistakes are made by players, it's let's move on. When mistakes are made by refs, it's supposed to be hold up, wait a second, we actually have a way about going to get this right. That's my only issue.
Well, you'll never get a disagreement or fight out of me about the refs need to do a better job. in the value of replay or the lack thereof. You and I have been complaining about this since day one. These refs seemingly are getting worse and worse. And not to get off subject, but we saw that in the national title game. Those refs tried as hard as they could to do everything they could to get an undermanned Miami team a chance. They missed holding calls and roughing the passers. They missed 3 roughing passer penalties in one drive. They did everything they could to try to give Miami the game. And you know what? At the end of the day, not even the refs could save Carson Beck.
And speaking of other things that made me say, you fire Sean McDermott and you promote the GM Bean. And I'm just, this one really took me way left, because the coach came to you prior to the trade deadline and said, hey, this is to the GM and to the owner. We don't have a championship roster. Like we're good enough to get where we've been, but we're not going to get where we want to go with this group of people. And to the coach's point, you're hiring people like Brandon Cooks to come in and be your wide receiver mid-season. Yeah, you had no depth at all at wide receiver. There were several other positions that you didn't have depth in. And your decision at the end of the year is to say, hey, let me fire the guy that has a better record than the vast majority of the coaches currently coaching, and let me promote the guy that's responsible for the roster not being good enough for Josh Allen to be able to succeed with. It doesn't take a whole lot for Josh Allen to be able to be successful. It doesn't take a whole lot on your roster. You can be deficient in a lot of spots. But the fact that you don't have a number 1 wide receiver, you don't really even have a number 2. That one threw me for a loop, because what has he done other than I can't even tell you what he's done. I can't think of the cherry on top of his sundae that makes him get a promotion and the coach get fired.
Well, what's interesting to your point was, obviously for those out there that don't know this, part of, in my estimation, and based on everything I've read, I think there were 2 things that led to his demise, meaning McDermott. One, about a month ago, he had a meeting with the owner and Bean and basically called out the roster deficiencies and why they couldn't win the Super Bowl with the roster assembled. And that didn't sit well with either one of them, per what has been reported. The second part is you and I have said this for a long time, which is McDermott's been a great regular season coach, but he's not been great in the postseason. And he, in most coaching matchups in the playoffs, he's not the better of the 2 options.
Think fast, BK. Think fast. Name 1 coach currently available that has a better record in the playoffs than him. Think fast. I'll help you. Nobody. But go on. I digress.
His record is 8-8. So 500.
Who's better? That currently wants to work.
Well, so here's what I'll say to that. You're not going to fire the quarterback. And it's obvious whether, even though I disagree with this part. So I'll say this. Let me backtrack. If it were up to me, I would have let them both go. But if the option was either one or the other, I would have erred on keeping McDermott and getting rid of Bean. And the reason why is because unless, and again, I don't know this, but unless he had substantial say in the roster, meaning McDermott, the GM's picking the players. And if you look at last year's draft specifically, he shit the bed. Like, Bean sucked in last year's draft. And here's the other part. You rightfully pay Josh Allen, right? $58 million. But the problem is your wideouts aren't any good. and your secondary outside of one or two aren't that good. Your defense is missing a lot of pieces. You have no wideouts. So, and like I hear Shakir, right? But let's look at last week's game. He had 6 catches for 75 yards. He had 40 on one play. So if you throw that one, and I know that's not fair to do that, but if you throw out the one big play, he had 5 catches for 35 yards, which means essentially in a must-win game, your best receiver was a 0. So, like, that can't happen. To your point about the wideouts, what really looks bad is Bean could have drafted Luther Burden III. Instead, he got Keon Coleman. And, like, that's something that I'm not the only one who's noticed. I say that to say that McDermott, I believe, should have been given another year. I've not been a fan of his because of how he gets outcoached in the playoffs. Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, they're all much better coaches than McDermott.
Yes, they are much better coaches. And there isn't a better coach than the people you just named, including McDermott. So what are we going to do? Go get Clint Kubiak? Like who are we going to go get? Somebody that has never coached the game before? Like what do we? I don't.
Okay. Here's why to me the move doesn't make sense. So you're bringing in a new coach with the same roster and the same GM, now president, who's proven he can't draft effectively. So if the coach is, let's just say the coach is better, hypothetically. He's still not the one buying the groceries. So, if my team has cap problems and I don't have the talent across the board, then what coach is going to fix that problem? I'll wait.
Well, BK, I'm glad you asked that question. There's one coach. There's one coach that may be available, that may be able to actually there may be 2 coaches available, but probably only one that can actually get things going on the defensive side, and then just make it as such that Josh Allen plays within himself instead of having to be Superman. But I don't think either one of them, I don't know if he'll get the phone call, and the other, I don't know that he wants to work this year. And that's Bill Belichick and Mike Tomlin. That's all I got for you. There's nobody else currently available that will be able to outcoach the guys that you just named that outcoached McDermott in the postseason. So you're going to run into the exact same issues unless you essentially get 1 or 2 people, or get really lucky with someone who's never done it before, that just has a different set of problems than McDermott. Maybe they sneak their way into wild card weekend and then they win more playoff games versus winning the regular season games and then losing in the playoffs. That's about the best range of outcomes you could hope for if you're a Buffalo Bill. With that being said, I do want your opinion on a few other things that went on the weekend. Best game, biggest winner, biggest loser. Are a couple of those one and the same for you? What was your take as far as the weekend was concerned?
So I think for me, the biggest winner for me is New England, because not only did they advance to the AFC title game in a divisional round game where they didn't play well, they were just fortunate that Houston was so epically bad, specifically Stroud, that they were able to survive and advance. But now they get to play a Broncos team without their starting quarterback. Things are looking really good for New England this weekend. So I think they're the biggest winner. You can make the argument for Seattle just because of how dominant they were, but I think New England is the biggest winner. As far as the biggest loser, it's got to be the Bills, and specifically Josh Allen, because All we heard the narrative throughout the postseason was no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar Jackson. You have the easiest road you've ever had to a Super Bowl this year without that kryptonite in the postseason. And while I understand the logic there, I think it's foolish because it's disrespectful to just how good New England and Denver have been this year. Like you don't go 14-3 because you're not good. Like I think that's disrespectful, but I understand that not having to deal with Reed and Mahomes specifically always makes life easier given the fact that they've owned them in the postseason. So I think the biggest loser is the Bills because if they don't get over the hump this year, then when?
They won't be getting over the hump because I don't know why they think that whoever the new guy is going to be, life is going to be easier than what it was with at least knowing that you can get to the playoffs. Best game to me by far. Well, I can't say by far, but best game to me, Chicago Rams. Um, Broncos Bills was good. It was really good, but I was on the edge of my seat, and Caleb Williams showed me something. Like this may have been the best Chicago season I've seen since
The 85 Bears.
I can't think of a Chicago season that I've seen that's been better. Yeah, I mean they're there. They're right where they want to be. So that was my best game. Biggest winner. I think the biggest winner, I would have to say actually the Rams. And the only reason I didn't say New England was because New England, like at this very moment, New England is like 3 years ahead of schedule. like, like New England fans were talking wild card. We're going to the AFC Championship. There is no loss that New England can take at this point. It's all house money. Biggest loser, I'm actually not even going to go with the team. I'm going to go with the player, CJ Stroud. I don't know how several quarterbacks didn't play well and lost this weekend, but he seems to be the only one catching the amount of flack that's been thrown his way. He had about as bad a game as Josh Allen, who seems to not get, any vitriol thrown his way at all. But it's almost like that they're calling for CJ's job after a bad postseason. I'm pretty sure he still has as many or more playoff wins than Dak Prescott, who still has a job. He has as many or more playoff wins than several quarterbacks around the league. And the regular season does still count for something. So he was the biggest loser, my humble opinion. Looking forward to this weekend, what are your picks? AFC, NFC title games. We have New England at Denver. I think you kind of alluded to your pick there, but then we have the Rams at Seattle. I'll throw my picks out first. So I do have New England over Denver, and I have Seattle taking out the Rams. Seattle has just been flying under the radar. Their defense is back to Legion of Boom status. And I don't know if people recognize this, but Sam Darnold has taken two different teams to a 14-3 record in consecutive seasons. He hasn't had good games against the Rams this year, though. I think the total is like 6 turnovers and 2 touchdowns is what he's racked up against the Rams. So I'm also one of those believers, and I know you said that I'm dead wrong. I understand. It's just I'm staying in my headspace. And we didn't have a stat on what happens the third time a team plays a team. But I know you pretty much said the team that wins the first time, 2/3 of the times wins the second. I don't know what the stats is when they play each other 3 times, but I'm just assuming that at some point, a broken clock is right twice a day, and the other team gets a W that they may not have gotten on many other Sundays. So that's kind of where I am with that. What's your preview of the weekend?
Well, you gave me a lot of things to talk about there. So I agree with your assessment about Allen seeming to get more of a pass than Stroud. Obviously, in my comments earlier specifically, I definitely am more than willing to call it Josh Allen for his careless, reckless turnovers. He's got to learn from his mistakes and play better. You can't keep forcing the ball like he does. It's too many mistakes. And championship quarterbacks don't do that. And at this point in his career, I just wonder, you know what? Maybe he's just not a championship quarterback. You know, as far as CJ Stroud goes, um, the team was great this year, especially the last 12 games of the year. CJ didn't play great. The concerning thing to me is the game in he played at Ohio State. So it's not like he's foreign to cold weather. And he played awful against the Steelers in the first half and couldn't hold on to the ball. And then kept throwing awful picks against New England. Now, look, New England's defense is really good. I'm not trying to take away from them. Like, and schematically, they did some things to confuse him. But you can't throw you can't throw 4 picks in the first half ever, let alone even in a game. Like, that can't happen. You've got to do better than that. So both
I
him
agree.
and
My only issue is with CJ. He was down his top 2 pass catchers. That's not an excuse, but sometimes a good reason beats a great excuse. In Nico Collins not being there, Schultz not being there, and Higgins, normally your third option, being covered by a number 1 corner, and he's normally used to seeing the second or third best person in the secondary. I think that made a huge difference. And the fact that no one's talking about the fact that they only had like 11 rushing yards in the first half. The fact that the reason why he had so many interceptions is because they couldn't run the ball at all. He had to throw the ball. Like most teams, you could say, hey, let's take the pressure off the quarterback. Let's run a little bit. Let's make it to where he can't throw an interception. They didn't have that option. So like it's blame to go all around, not just see.
as far as this weekend goes, and you know me well enough to know that I am usually very adamant and confident in my picks here. But I have an obligation to the congregation and to you to tell the truth. And the truth is, I don't know. I'm going to make picks, but I'm not confident in either one. And I'll explain why very briefly. So I have New England and Seattle winning, but I don't trust Sam Darnold, especially against the Rams. His stats weren't good last week, but they didn't have to be because they just absolutely overwhelmed the Niners. And the thing that makes me nervous about New England is Drake Maye's never played a postseason game on the road. Denver, not Seattle tough, but Denver is a brutal place to try to play. The altitude is real. And every single person who's and I use quote unquote expert, air quotes, every single person is picked New England to win. And I watched on the national title telecast everybody but Pat McAfee pick Miami and how that go. So
and then everybody picked Houston to beat New England.
Correct. So I say that to say that I think New England finds a way to win only because I'm not confident, contrary to what the narrative they're trying to say in Denver. I'm not confident a guy who hasn't thrown a real pass in 3 years is going to be able to beat a really good New England team. But I'm going to say New England wins a close game. I think Seattle will pull it out barely. I think both of these games are going to be very tight. But I do think whoever wins the Seattle Rams game will be the Super Bowl champion. And that I'm confident of.
I agree. and it makes me happy to know that my team will be the underdog in the Super Bowl. We tend to do well in those situations more so than when we're the top dog. So, but now it is time for one of my favorite parts of the show, at least, and I think I can say that you're on the same page with me here with our top 5 all time of something. And this week we have our top 5 most annoying things that people do. And we're going to keep the flow rolling here. I don't have an honorable mention because so we're going to keep the pattern for 2026 going. I just have 5, no honorable mentions. What's your 5?
And I don't think either one of us cheated this time.
No, I don't think we did. I don't know if we went at it looking at it from the same perspective, but yeah, I don't think anyone was cheated this time. So yeah, what's your number 5?
Number 5, loud phone use or using your speakerphone in public. Everybody in the store doesn't need to hear your conversation. Nobody cares. You're not that important. Be like a normal person and don't put it on speakerphone. That's obnoxious, rude, and quite frankly, annoying.
I will agree there. It wasn't on my list, but I'll agree with that. Number 5 for me. Please do not pull out in front of me and slow me down. I was 2 seconds away from being in front of you, and you could have drove as slow as you wanted to, but you're going to pull out in front of me and then drive slowly. Please don't do that.
Is it too late to have an honorable mention? Because that one was so darn good.
I was going to say the same thing about.
I was like, can we just cheat and change the rules midstream and be like, we'll allow those?
I think so. Look, we'll allow it because we can. What's your number 4, BK?
That's true. Who's going to overrule us, right? There's no replay to screw that up. So,
hey,
my number 4, and this is oh my gosh, annoying and a pet peeve. Chewing with your mouth open.
Okay, not on my list either, but I see the pattern that's about to go on here. Yeah, that's definitely a pet peeve of mine too. And that's almost just as bad as speaking while food is still in your mouth. That's both.
Real quick, I want to go back to your last one, Zay, because like it is so frustrating. To your point, like you literally cut us off to get in front of us, then to drive really slow. So like, why was the urgency to get in front of us but then drive slow? Make it make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you like mine more than you like yours right now.
I'm not going to lie.
Number 4 for me, BK. Never start a sentence with no offense, but, or with all due respect. Just say what you got to say. Because if you start a sentence while you're talking to me with no offense, but, or with all due respect, my fists are already clenching because you're about to say something that has little respect and is going to be offensive. That's just what I've seen in life. Okay, so the whole no offense or with all due respect, hold that and just say what it is you need to say. So that way I am not already in my mind preparing to be disrespected. Number 3 for you, BK.
Well, with all due respect, my number 3 is actually, and I kind of encompassed it, which would count part of what you said for 5, is driving habits. Like lack of merging, not using turn signals. One of my pet peeves is the cutting off part. But how in the world are you in the right lane going to go right? Your vehicle naturally starts to go right when you're going right, essentially. And it takes you a day and a half to make a right turn. Like, how does it take 25 minutes to make a right turn?
Oh, it's even worse when you're not switching lanes, but you're just trying to turn off to a street or maybe turn into a restaurant or a store, and it takes you 45 seconds to get off of the main street and to make your turn.
Right.
What are you doing? What are we doing?
That's just terrible.
Yeah. Number 3 for me. Talking during a movie or TV show and then asking me what you missed. Well, I don't know because I missed it too. So Let's just rewind it. Watch something that has been watched before. Yeah, talking during the movie, and it's even because I stopped going to the movies when movies first came out, especially if it was going to be a good movie in a crowd. Because as soon as a good part happens in the movie, the next 10 seconds you miss because people are yelling at the screen. So yeah, talking during the movie or a good TV show, just stop it.
I love it. My number two is something I'm going to call myself out on because, well, I just said it's annoying. I openly admit that I do this. Unsolicited advice. It's really annoying. And I'm so bad at doing it, but it doesn't change that it's not annoying. So that's number two.
I'm guilty as well. I'm guilty as well. Yeah. What do you want me to do? I mean, I don't know if that was a sneak shot at me, BK, or what, but
no, honestly, the whole thing was about throwing myself under the bus because I'm laughing as I say it because I know I'm guilty of it.
Number two for me, the one-up guy. No matter what story you tell, that guy that has a story that's just a little bit more outrageous, or he got in just a little bit more trouble, or I hate the one-up guy. You know, no matter what story you tell, if you think that's something, let me tell you about. No, let you not. This wasn't even your conversation. Who made you a part of this? Like that's up there for me. The one up guy, and normally the one up guy is lying anyway, which is also a pet peeve. That would be an honorable mention. Children and scared people lie. You're grown. What are we doing? Yeah. So, what's your number one, BK?
My number one is constant complaining. Like I'm a very positive person. And so, like, I get that bad things happen, and there's reasons why we're all feeling valid when we complain, right? Like, there's validity to that. But bad things happen. You always say bad things happen to good people sometimes, right? Like that happens. But if every single day you have nothing but awful things to say, every single day is a bad day or complaining, I can assure you, here's unsolicited advice. If it's happening every day, it's not everyone else, it's you.
If it stinks everywhere you go,
life's too
take
short
a bath.
Life's way too short to be that miserable. Like, come on.
Agreed.
What's your number one?
Number one for me, it's twofold. Asking questions you already know the answer to, specifically questions that you've already asked me multiple times and I've given you the answer to. That is, yes, that is number one for a reason. And I just, please don't ask me the answer to a question and then I give you the answer. And even worse, actually, let me give you that was one. Let me give you one dot one. The one B to the 1A. If you ask me a question and I give you the answer and then you tell me that my answer is wrong, yeah, I just don't talk to me anymore. Just go over there. Because why are you talking to me right now if you don't know the answer, but you just know that my answer is wrong? Oh, you got it. You're absolutely right. Moving right along. Go ask Google. That's all I got for you.
I mean, it's amazing how much smarter I've gotten since using Google and AI.
Matter of fact, ask them first. That's want to name something that you could tell people to go do now that you couldn't tell them back in the day. Whenever someone asks you a question that is Googleable, it's now a verb. If it's Googleable, go Google it. Why are you asking me? You're much more likely to get what you're looking for and to believe it via Google or AI than me, apparently. So leave me alone. With that being said, BK, it is now the money-making part of the show, or possibly the saving us from losing money part of the show. BK's best bets. What we got?
Yeah, so it's going to be a saving you guys money this week. I'm not confident of either of the outcomes this week. You and I agree that it will likely be New England and Seattle, but there's the potential for it to be the other way around. And so I just really don't know there. And when there's too many variables and I'm not sure, we don't guess with our money. We'll just count our undefeated week last week, count all those dollars, and move on to the next week. But I do want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Indiana Hoosiers on their national title. Where we work, we talk all the time about the art of possible. In Indiana, prior to the last 2 years, was the losingest program in college football. And to have the seasons they've had in the last 2 years and how they've done it is truly 0 5-star players. And what I love is their coach takes 3-star players, in some cases 2-star players, that nobody wants, and turns them into 5-star players. And I think what's interesting is it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is this is a message out there to everyone in college football that if the Indiana Hoosiers can do this, anybody can. But the cursing part is because the Indiana Hoosiers did this, all these university presidents and athletic directors and fans are all going to expect all these schools to be able to do the same thing, and the pressure is going to get ramped up.
Dion, you are on notice, my guy, because if Sid can get it done in a couple of years, and you're supposed to be who you say you are, yikes! It's time to show and prove. It made everyone's leash shorter. Because now a whole bunch of programs are going to be looking for their Signetti instead of whoever they have. So,
by the way, Zay, I would like to propose a trade to you.
I'll hear it.
And I realize this is a hypothetical that would never happen, but if the Buckeyes could trade Ryan Day for Signetti, how quick would you do that deal?
It wouldn't even be fair. I'll give you Ryan Day, and maybe we can have a discussion about Brutus, because Ryan Day isn't going to be valuable enough in the trade to bring up a Signetti. So we're going to have to throw something else up in there.
I'd drive him to the darn airport.
Maybe the drum major that dots the I. You have an I in Indiana, so maybe we'll send you a drum major, something to teach you how to the marching band, how to do something special with your setup. I don't know, but I was literally saying to myself that the blessing in disguise may be what Signetti did, what he has already done, but then also looking at the fact that without an OC, like as much as I don't want us to go through a slump, it may be necessary to get rid of Ryan Day. And I know I keep trying to get rid of Ryan Day, and he's a year removed from being a champion, but he also showed me that he's a year removed from being a champion because he's a year removed. Well, not even a full year, but he's been removed from calling the plays. He's the problem. Like, his play calling is an issue. And if we don't get a significant upgrade in play calling this offseason, and I don't know who's going to be available, but we'll have to see.
And one last thing before we wrap up this show is I need to call you out on something, buddy, because
what's that?
Let's run through the last 3 national champions. Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. What conferences are they in?
Big Ten.
I cannot believe we made it through this whole show where the Indiana Hoosiers won the national title and the SEC failed again, and you did not call them out. I fully expected this.
Well, BK, I'm going to tell you, right about now, I feel about the SEC the way that most people felt about the Patriots until this year. You're not worth talking about yet. I'll start talking about you again when you start winning again. And that pretty much wraps up the show, good people. And remember, above all else, tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
We out.
Later, y'all.